On to Loco Profiling episode 23, and part 2, the Bullied Pacific Trilogy. Last time I talked about 35028, Clan Line of the Merchant Navy class. So this time, it's fair that I look at a different Bullied Pacific, which was a bit of a running mate for a time. Today, we're talking about Locomotive 34027, Taw Valley, from the West Country class. Following the introduction of the merchant navies built by the Southern between February of 1941 and June of 1945, Oliver Bullied came up with a slightly smaller and lighter version of the same locomotive, which would eventually total 110 examples. But just like the merchant navies, production of these new light Pacifics was split before and after the 1948 merger and nationalization into British Railways. As an individual railway prior to nationalization, the Southern built 70 of these light Pacifics, initially numbered 21C101 through 21C170, between May of 1945 and November of 1947. And after nationalization, 40 additional light Pacifics were built between April of 1948 and January of 1951, complete with a class-wide renumbering scheme. So, just like how the merchant navies took the 35,000 series, the light Pacifics took on the new 34,000 series, becoming 34001 through 34110, or 34110, or 34110, however you want to pronounce it. Feel free to leave in the comments which one of those is actually the best. But also, speaking of these BR numbers for the Bullied Pacifics, the 3 at the start of the number identifies the locomotive as a former Southern machine. And of course, as stated in the prelude video, the light Pacifics were also split into 2 separate subclasses, which only differed from each other in what they were named after. You had the West Country class, totaling 66 locomotives named after West Country locations and villages, and the mechanically identical Battle of Britain class, totaling 44 locomotives named after various British things and people involved with the Battle of Britain of the Second World War. Airfields, airplanes, squadrons, politicians, military officers, and all that stuff. Oh, and before I forget, when it comes to BR numbering, there was also a 33,000 series for Bullied's other class of steam locomotives, the Q1 class 060s. 40 of which were all built in 1942, though I don't know the months at the moment, initially numbered C1 through C40 before becoming 33001 through 33040 in BR days. Anyway, onto our subject locomotive, Taw Valley. Built in April of 1946, this was one of the West Country locomotives. And upon her construction, Taw Valley carried the rather confusing number 21C127. But unlike the Merchant Navy locomotives, which were all built in Eastleigh, Taw Valley and most of the other light Pacifics were built in Brighton, at the locomotive factory that used to belong to the old London, Brighton and South Coast Railway, one of only 3 companies to have really been merged together in 1923 to form the Southern Railway in the first place. In fact, there were only 6 light Pacifics that were built in Eastleigh. And throughout her career, Taw Valley was shuffled around between Ramsgate, Exeter, London, though I don't know which specific shed in London, Brighton, and finally Salisbury. The main notes of her career are hauling several prestigious passenger trains for the Southern, like the Devon Belle and the Atlantic Coast Express, obtaining her British Rail number 34027 in April of 1948, her rebuild into the more conventional shape in September of 1957, and her retirement, bowing out of regular service in August of 1964. But unlike Clan Line, Taw Valley didn't end up in preservation with immediate effect. Instead, she was sent away to the Wooden Brothers scrapyard in Barry, which is in Wales, languishing there until 1980. That's the year when the locomotive was bought by Bert Hitchin, a steam preservationist and professional road racing cyclist from Scotland. Okay, you're cool, I like you. Hitchin actually bought the locomotive as a birthday present for his wife, and restoring the locomotive proved to be a tremendous labor of love, for Taw Valley had been stripped of many, almost irreplaceable components. The rebuild and restoration began on the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, but she was later moved to the East Lancashire Railway at some point in 1982, and then moved again in August of 1985 to the Severn Valley Railway, where restoration continued. After trial runs commencing in October of 1987, she entered service on the Severn Valley in June of 1988. A funny and somewhat famous story from Taw Valley's time in Barrie was that on August 14th of 1967, a young television reporter was sent to the Wooden Brothers scrapyard to cover a news story. Obviously, the yard had become a graveyard for steam locomotives, and a place of pilgrimage for railway enthusiasts. The man in question was John Humphreys, who would later find fame on the BBC's Today program. He chose an engine at random and delivered his eulogy for steam.
The great steam giants that once pounded the rails from Land's End to Jolligroats, rotting and rusting now on tracks of weed and grass. This really is the end of the line.
But little did Mr. Humphreys realize that when he found fame in London, steam would follow in his tracks, as Taw Valley was the very locomotive that he climbed aboard on all those years ago, when he pronounced steam dead. During a rebuild, Taw Valley also got Mainline certified, and for a while she was even stationed at Stewart's Lane Depot in London, alongside the previous Bullied Pacific on the show, which I already mentioned a few times. Merchant Navy locomotive 35028 Clan Line. The two bullies were rubbing shoulders together for mainline duties, including the Belmont British Pullman train on the Venice Simplon Orient Express runs. Sometimes they'd even double head, and in at least one of those instances, Clan Line masqueraded as lost classmate 35017 Belgian Marine. In 2001, Taw Valley returned to the Severn Valley Railway as a resident, following the end of her mainline career. She had done a bit of work on the SVR in the past, but now this would be her new home, after Bert sold the locomotive to Severn Valley Railway member Phil Shallow. Following its withdrawal from mainline running, the locomotive was disguised as scrapped sister locomotive 34036 Westward Ho, for an appearance at the SVR's Autumn Steam Gala in 2005. Brits may say autumn, I have more American English, I say fall, but whatever. But in that same year, the locomotive was withdrawn from service, requiring a complete overhaul. But of course, Taw Valley's preservation career was a little bit more colorful than that of Clan Line, literally speaking at least. Granted, both locomotives were predominantly known for BR Brunswick green,
Perhaps the favorite color of most granddads.
but in the early 2000s, Taw Valley literally became a bit more colorful, as she was painted red for a while, being used on a special reel tour promoting the release of the 4th Harry Potter book at the time, The Goblet of Fire. This red livery was also applied in the hopes that she could be used for filming duties following the Harry Potter franchise's signature passenger train, the Hogwarts Express, in upcoming Harry Potter movies. As a movie based on the first Harry Potter book, The Philosopher's Stone was already in production at the time. But unfortunately, Taw Valley was turned down by Chris Columbus, the director for the first 2 Harry Potter movies. His argument? The locomotive didn't look old enough, as the Harry Potter movies do have this certain vibe to them where everything in the wizarding world appears to be no more modern and technologically advanced than the 1950s, as is a different steam locomotive with a more old-fashioned appearance got the job instead. That locomotive was obviously Great Western number 5972, Alton Hall, being temporarily renamed Hogwarts Castle in the process. But other than the red livery for the brief Harry Potter promotion, Taw Valley's other best-known livery was in the summer of 2022, when she was repainted purple and temporarily rebranded as number 70, Elizabeth II. Obviously to celebrate the 70th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II as the reigning monarch of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. It was planned to have her repainted back into British Railways Brunswick Green during September of 2022. But during that time, Liz died at the age of 96. So instead, as a fitting tribute to her, Taw Valley was kept in the purple livery, with the only additional changes being the repainting of the nameplates from red to black, and the dates 1926 to 2022 painted in black on the purple bracket holding the plate up. Sometime later, for the end of 2022 and into 2023, Taw Valley would reclaim her old name and her BR number 34027. As of now, her most recent livery change was a stopgap into unlined wartime black from the Southern Railway, complete with her old and confusing Southern number 21C127. Just to clarify, I know it doesn't make any sense from a historical point of view. But again, this was only a stopgap. For today, Taw Valley is in bits, undergoing another major overhaul. But that was episode 23 done and dusted. There goes Taw Valley. Join me in another week from now, where we finally concluded the Bully Pacific trilogy with our Battle of Britain locomotive. Number 34066, Spitfire. But unlike this episode on Taw Valley and the previous episode on Clan Line, I'm not looking forward to the Spitfire episode. But I'll see you there anyway.